King Nebuchadnezzar. Have you ever heard of the king that lost his mind and was convinced that he was an animal and lived out in the wild for 7 years? King Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon from 605 BC to 562 BC. Now, at some point during his reign, he pissed off God by being way too prideful. According to the book of Daniel in the Bible, God came to Nebuchadnezzar in a dream and said, "They shall drive you from your men. Your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make you eat grass like oxen." Following this dream, Nebuchadnezzar lost his fucking mind. For 7 years, he lived out in the wild, ate grass, crawled on all fours, and his hair grew like eagle's feathers, and his nails became like bird claws. Now, suddenly, after those 7 years, King Nebuchadnezzar recovered from this psychosis, came to his senses, and he retook his throne as a very, very humble man. Welcome back to Law and Order. Today we're talking about the strangest rulers in history. If you like that drama and that mess dealing with wives and all that, make sure you stick toward the end because I got something special for you. King Charles VI of France, the king that thought he was made of glass. So Charles VI became king of France at age 11, and at age 23, he had his first episode. He was leading his army through the woods to go attack one of his enemies, and one of the boys in his army accidentally dropped his weapon, clattering on the ground. When Charles heard this, he completely lost it. He started swinging his sword around, and he killed 5 of his own men in the process before he was able to be restrained. After this incident, Charles VI continued to have psychotic episodes on and off. There were even times where he didn't even recognize his own wife and kids, and he would start running around his palace screaming. One time, he refused to wash his ass for 5 months straight, and his people eventually forced him to bathe after he became covered in infected sores, bugs, and lice. But the craziest thing of all was that at one point, Charles was convinced that he was completely made of glass. He wouldn't let anyone touch him because he was afraid that he would crack or even break. He even had special iron rods put into his clothes so he wouldn't accidentally fall and shatter into a million pieces. He really believed that his whole body was made of fragile glass. Looking back on it, King Charles VI of France was thought to have schizophrenia, manic depressive psychosis, and a host of other things. Theodore Roosevelt. Now, the 26th president of the United States makes our list today because if it was like you told a meathead football linebacker to take charge of the United States and go crazy. He talked hella shit, he skinny dipped while he was president, he even had routine boxing matches in the White House, which he participated in regularly. He only stopped one day because he had to. One of the fights left him blind in one eye. But the craziest thing happened on October 14, 1912, when President Theodore Roosevelt was about to give a speech. He was shot, began coughing up blood, and refused to go to the hospital. He wanted to end his speech, and the first thing he said after being shot, "Friends, I shall ask you to be as quiet as possible. I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." Look, man, Buddy was like the Cam Scatterbull of all presidents. He was wild. He was a dog, apparently. He got shot. He didn't give up. He still gave that speech. Emperor Caligula. Now for this next one, let me take you back to ancient Rome, to the year 37 AD. Emperor Caligula just started his reign. He was taking over for Emperor Tiberius, a very harsh ruler. Now, Emperor Caligula started off great. He lowered taxes, changed the morale and persecution Rome faced under Emperor Tiberius. He gave the military pay raises, and everything was fantastic. People really adored him. Now, in October of the year 37, Caligula got very sick. I'm talking about on the brink of death for a month straight type sick. Rome became depressed. They loved Caligula, and senators in Rome were crying out to the god Jupiter, saying to spare Caligula and take their lives instead. Now, miraculously, Caligula survives. But after a month of having a constant near-death experience, something changed in Caligula. He brings those same senators that were praying to the god of Jupiter to his court, sits them down, and he's basically like, "So, when are you gonna do it? When are you gonna follow through? I'm alive. You said you would sacrifice your own life instead. When are you gonna do it? One by one, Emperor Caligula made these senators take their own lives right in front of him in his court. After this, Caligula moved forward in his reign with tyranny and unpredictability. He was insane. He declared himself to be God. He dressed extravagantly in women's clothing. He took the remaining alive senators' wives at dinner parties, and there was nothing they could do about it. There was also a rumor that started that he was having an affair with his little sister. Then Caligula made the rumors become true when he married her. He randomly started killing people. One time, he went to go sacrifice an animal to the gods, and he missed the animal on purpose when he swung and hit a priest that was standing right next to him, killing him instantly. He blew through all Rome's money and started doing treason trials just like Emperor Tiberius before him was doing. He would confiscate people's money and land at random, put them on trial, and just kill them. Not only kill them, he would torture them in the process. And Emperor Caligula loved seeing people being tortured. He loved this shit more than I love watching football on Sunday, which is saying a lot. In the year AD 40, Emperor Caligula took 200,000 of Rome's men and marched them off to the sea. Before they crossed the waters, Emperor Caligula told them to get ready to whack shit. But instead of crossing these waters and invading Britain at the time, Caligula told these 200,000 men to just collect seashells as spoils of war. And then they just rolled back to Rome. The next year, Emperor Caligula and his family were assassinated, putting an end to his crazy, manic, honestly strange, dumbass reign in Rome. King Ludwig II of Bavaria, also known as the fairy tale king. Now let's talk about a king that was more interested in being a creator than he was actually ruling. In 1864, King Ludwig II of Bavaria came into throne at 18 years old. He was 6'4", which was like 6'10" at the time, with good looks and instant popularity. However, there was one issue. Ludwig hated large crowds. He was super introverted. He avoided doing any real king duties at all costs, instead hanging out in the countryside working on his artistic projects. He put his money towards building insane, magnificent castles like Neuschwanstein, Herrenchiemsee, and Linderhof. So beautiful and inspired Walt Disney in his design of the Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty palaces. King Ludwig II blew through all of his money and even started borrowing a lot more, falling into crazy debt. He also couldn't find a wife because he didn't want a wife, if you know what I mean. This was a huge problem back then because these things weren't really accepted. And plus, King Ludwig was following the Catholic religion. After years of withdrawing and avoiding the reality of politics and ruling, spending all of his money on his projects, and having many close male friendships, the strangest part came: his death. To avoid a government crisis, Bavarian ministers removed Ludwig from the throne. They sat him in front of a panel of psychiatrists who declared him insane without a psych eval, only going off of eyewitness statements. The day after he was dethroned, he was taken to the Castle Berg, which they set up as some sort of psych ward for him. Now one evening, King Ludwig takes a walk with the psychiatrist overseeing him. Within a few hours, they were found both dead at a lake. The physicians showed signs of being hit in the back of the head and strangled. Ludwig's official cause of death was suicide by drowning, but he had no water in his lungs. There are many theories and debates about what happened on that walk and how they ended up in that lake, but no one will truly ever know what happened that evening. Joshua Norton. So, a man named Joshua Norton was born around 1818 in England. He grew up in South Africa and moved to San Francisco in his 20s. He became a successful businessman through trading in real estate. He ended up being worth about $10 million in today's money. Big mansions, women, parties, strong influence, rich friends, best clothes you could think of. He was balling. One day though, he ends up losing all his money in bad business deals. He ends up being taken to court. His whole life comes crashing down. He's now broke, living in homeless shelters. Randomly, he runs for Congress and it didn't work out. Now one day in his free time, he apparently has a full psychotic break. He pulls up to a newspaper printing office and hands them a letter declaring himself Emperor of the United States. Funny enough, the printing office published his letter in a newspaper, Obviously, they thought it was satire, but Joshua Norton was dead serious. His first royal decree was to abolish Congress because they were corrupt in his eyes. When nothing happened and Congress showed up the next day for work, he got pissed off. He himself ordered the commanding U.S. Army General Winfield Scott to remove Congress from their positions in D.C. Obviously, Joshua Norton was ignored. But for the next 21 years, he walked around San Francisco like he owned the place. He was an emperor on his royal rounds. He could be seen daily dressed in a blue uniform with gold pellets, a beaver hat on his head with feathers on it. He even started issuing his own currency, and restaurants around the place started actually accepting it. Everybody really looked at him as harmless, kind of a joke, but he kind of was showing love. One day he was arrested and a mob showed up outside the jailhouse ordering his freedom. They really didn't think he was harming anybody. These days, that same currency that Joshua Norton was issuing are worth thousands by the piece. King Henry VIII and his many wives. Now, if you made it this far, you know I promised you a lot of drama and mess. And if you into that relationship toxicity, you came to the right place. Let's get into it. King Henry VIII, as a child, had an older brother named Arthur, and he was married to Catherine of Aragon. Now, soon after Arthur and Catherine were married, they both became very sick. Catherine survived, but Arthur didn't. Now, Catherine had no inheritance to any throne since her older sister was set to inherit the throne of Spain. Catherine, however, claimed that she never consummated her marriage with Arthur, meaning that she was still a virgin, and then she was eventually allowed to marry Henry VIII. Henry becomes king, he marries Catherine, and they began trying for a son. See, King Henry needed a son to inherit the throne. He needed to secure his bloodline, since if they had a daughter, she'd be married off to some foreign land. However, they had a miscarriage. In fact, they had multiple miscarriages, stillbirths, and infants that didn't survive too many years past childhood. One day, they finally give birth to a healthy baby girl named Mary, known later in history as Bloody Mary. But Catherine still cannot give Henry a son. And one day, Henry meets two young girls named Mary and Anne Boleyn, two sisters. These girls were actually in Catherine's inner circle, her ladies in waiting, sort of like staff employed to help her out with everything. King Henry VIII cracks Mary, gets her pregnant with a son, but there's a big issue. It's a scandal, it's an affair. He has to have her sent off to a distant land and keeps this whole thing under wraps. But in Henry's mind, this proves something. He actually is capable of having a son, so it must be something wrong with Catherine. Now King Henry sets his eyes on Anne Boleyn, the younger sister of Mary. He becomes down bad over her, simping, writing crazy, freaky-ass love letters to her. He begins parading her around the courts. He does not care. Henry demands Catherine for a divorce, but Catherine is not going for it. She does not want to divorce King Henry. So King Henry goes to the Pope and says that he has to get a divorce from Catherine because she lied. She wasn't really a virgin when they married, that she slept with his older brother Arthur before he died. He said this made the marriage illegitimate and that the marriage was cursed, and this is why they couldn't have a healthy son. The Pope, however, disagreed. He said that this marriage was true in the eyes of God. King Henry becomes infuriated and he sends Catherine and her family off to a distant land. Now, King Henry is pressing hard to marry Anne Boleyn, so much in fact that he breaks off from the church and creates his own church, the Church of England. And the Church of England, King Henry declares himself as the one anointed by God. And he has to answer to nobody, no pope, only to himself. Now he finally marries Anne Boleyn. No one outside of England really recognizes Anne Boleyn as Queen of England. Now King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn have a successful pregnancy and give birth to a baby girl named Queen Elizabeth, later known in history as the Virgin Queen, a very strong ruler in that monarch. However, all of their sons were dying, similar to what was happening with Catherine. And Henry is becoming frustrated. He needs a son legitimately to pass his throne to. Enter Jane Seymour, another lady-in-waiting of Anne Boleyn. See the pattern here? He sets his sights on Jane Seymour, and eventually he's ready to marry her and try to have a son. Next step in order, he needs to get rid of Anne Boleyn, his second wife at this point. To do this, he accuses Anne Boleyn of using witchcraft, which is what she used to make him fall in love. He accuses her of having affairs with 5 different men. He also accuses her of having an affair with her own brother. He imprisons his wife, Anne Boleyn, and her brother, soon beheads them. Now, King Henry is free to marry Jane Seymour. They do that and they end up having a son, Edward, Prince of Wales. Unfortunately, Jane dies from childbirth. Now that's 3 wives down, and after being depressed for about 2 years, King Henry is single, ready to mingle, and find his 4th wife. He establishes an arranged marriage with Anne of Cleves, a German princess. However, they get married before ever meeting in person. And just like a Tinder date gone wrong, Anne of Cleves pulls up to England, and King Henry tweets. He's saying she's nothing like she looks in the paintings. I got catfished. He never sleeps with her and never consummates the marriage. He sends her off with a hefty divorce settlement. Nonetheless, we're on to wife number 5, Catherine Howard. And this one might be the most tragic and heartbreaking one out of all the wives so far. King Henry at this point, 49 years old, fat with a bum leg, not the same stud he used to be, marries the 17-year-old Catherine Howard. Soon after though, a scandal unfolds. Information comes out that Catherine is having an affair with multiple men and that she had a crazy sexual history before getting married to King Henry. King Henry finds out about this, and you already know what he felt. He accuses Catherine Howard of adultery and witchcraft. He even creates a law that says it's treason to not disclose your past sexual history before getting married. He has Catherine and all of her alleged affair partners' heads chopped off. They of course receive no formal trial. King Henry's 6th and last wife was another Catherine Parr. She was a divorcee that married Henry when he was very old at this point. She got him to legitimize Mary, Bloody Mary, and Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen, as his rightful children. She reconnects them, gets him to spend more time with them, bring them around the courts, everything like that. She really did a lot for Henry, and Henry dies before he could eventually tweak out and do something to her like many of his other wives. The toxic, freak-ass, fat-ass King Henry had over 57,000 people executed in his reign. And any of these women that were married to him eventually met a terrible fate, except for Jane Seymour and Catherine Parr. But regardless, there's a lot more drama and mess that I would ever want to deal with or see in my lifetime. That's all I got for y'all today. Hey, listen, if you want to be a part of the big Lower Norton family, go ahead and drop a like and comment. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's all I got for y'all today. I'll see y'all again real soon. Don't even worry about it. You dig?